Planet Earth. It seems that we know everything about it, but in this video, you'll learn so many crazy things that Ridley Scott's Star Engineers will seem downright elementary. Let's get started. In the biochemical exchange of terrestrial life, an unreasonably important role is played by a chemical element which is too little on our planet. That is, there is almost none at all. This is molybdenum. The most likely explanation for this phenomenon is that life originally originated in another world, on another planet, where molybdenum was much more abundant than on Earth and where its role, unreasonably important to the condition of our planet, was more justified. In addition to this, the American scientist Schroeder, as a result of many years of research, discovered a number of chemical elements, of which there are also extremely few on Earth. But even a relatively large increase in their dose in the ground not only does not harm plants, as it usually happens, but even prolongs their life. These elements include nickel, manganese, chromium, vanadium, and molybdenum. Here we should also add the fact that the composition of the human body includes a wide variety of chemicals, representing almost the entire periodic table. But only 14 of them were recognized as vital, among which there are the aforementioned nickel, manganese, chromium, vanadium, molybdenum, as well as cobalt, selenium, and fluorine. Such a discrepancy in the chemical composition of our planet with a completely different percentage distribution in a set of elements necessary for the existence of the life forms available on it looks inexplicable. But if we accept the hypothesis about the extraterrestrial origin of all earthly life, then everything falls into place. Some terrestrial plants consume the maximum energy of the sun in a different part of the spectrum than this star emits. They behave as if they have undergone the evolutionary path of development on the planets of another star, the maximum radiation of which is shifted towards higher frequencies, which corresponds, for example, to Sirius. According to these graphs, the ancestral home of terrestrial planets should be located near a star that, according to the Gershprung-Russell scale, belongs to the class of stars white bright subdwarfs, while the Sun belongs to the class of yellow stars. This may indicate that certain species of plants and animals have adapted to the conditions of terrestrial climatic zones from other planets. Some food crops do not have wild ancestors, such as corn. It cannot reproduce by self-seeding and run wild, as it needs a conscious being to reproduce. According to myths, a very long time ago, this cereal was given to people by beings who descended from heaven, whom earthlings considered gods. Here's what George Wells Beadle, an American geneticist, winner of the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1958, said, "A strange genetic cocktail is mixed in corn, and it is impossible to find the exact progenitor of this plant on planet Earth. With wheat, too, everything is very, very strange." Russian scientist Nikolai Vavilov, as a result of a global study of various types of wheat, established as many as 3 independent places of origin of this crop. Syria and Palestine turned out to be the birthplace of wild wheat and single-grain wheat. Abyssinia, or Ethiopia, is the birthplace of durum wheat, and the foothills of the Himalayas are the center of origin of soft wheat varieties. As Vavilov wrote in his work The Origin, Variation, Immunity, and Breeding of Cultivated Plants, it is very significant that in Abyssinia, where the maximum of the primary varietal diversity of 28 chromosomal cultivated wheat is contained, all the main wild relatives of wheat are completely absent. This fact leads to the need to revise our ideas about the process of the origin of cultivated plants. At the same time, the difference between the types of wheat is huge. Single-grain wheat has 14 chromosomes, wild and durum wheat have 28 chromosomes, and soft wheat has 42 chromosomes. To double and triple the chromosome set, methods are needed that are incompatible with primitive selection, which means they need to interfere on a genetic level. At the same time, even the earliest archaeological finds already reveal a ready-made variety of wheat species. A similar picture of the isolation of cultivated species from the regions of the distribution of their wild forms is also observed in a number of plants, including barley, peas, chickpeas, flax, carrots, and others. In any ancient myths and legends known to people, a person does not try to give himself or his ancestors credit for the development of agriculture. This is always the prerogative of certain gods. The great god Quetzalcoatl brought corn to Mexico. The god Viracocha taught agriculture to people in the Peruvian Andes. Osiris gave efficiency in agriculture to the peoples of Ethiopia, that is, Abyssinia and Egypt. The Sumerians were introduced to agriculture by Enki and Enlil, the gods who descended from heaven and brought them wheat and barley seeds. The Chinese were helped in the development of agriculture by heavenly geniuses and the lords of wisdom, who brought fruits and cereals to Tibet, previously unknown on Earth. According to the most ancient traditions and legends that have come down to us, that gods differed little in appearance and behavior from ordinary people, only their capabilities and abilities were incomparably higher than human ones. The oldest people of the planet have also never considered themselves to be of earthly origin. They either derive their ancestry from the heavenly gods, or contain myths about the direct migration of their ancestors from other worlds. This idea from earlier and ancient sources migrated even to the biblical myth about the expulsion of the first people from the heavenly paradise, and about their return to Earth, where by that time, life in the form of animals and plants had already been sown. In ancient texts, there is information that was clearly brought to the planet from the outside. Clay tablets found in the temple libraries of Sippar indicate that 5,000 years ago in Sumer, it was known that the celestial dome makes its full turn in 25,920 years. This is the so-called precession period of the Earth's axis. At the other end of the globe, the same figure appears in the astronomical texts of the ancient Mayans. How could ancient civilizations have accurate information about the precession period? After all, the entire history of today's humanity is less than half the age of this cycle. And the ancient Mayans were not only aware of the very concept of the true year, but also its exact duration. They considered it equal to 365.242199 days. According to the Gregorian calendar, which we use today, the duration of the true year is 365.2425 days. And only in recent decades, with the help of the most accurate astronomical instruments, its actual duration was established as 365.242198 days. Such hyper-precision is simply impossible with the progressive development of civilizations on the planet. Modern science has no answer to the question of how the priests of ancient Egypt had an accurate idea of the magnetic poles of the planet. At the other end of the planet, ancient Indian sources determined the age of the Earth at 4.32 billion years, which is close to modern data. And cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia, compiled more than 3,000 years ago, state that the radius of the globe is 3,920.9 miles. In modern times, it was calculated that it is equal to 3,958.76 miles. Scientists of the 20th century explained this insignificant difference by the expansion of the Earth. The ancient Sanskrit texts Surya Siddhanta and Brihat Jataka divide the day into 60 parts, kalas. A kala was equal to our 24 minutes and, in turn, was divided into 60 vikalas. Further 60-digit splitting of time segments into paras, tatparas, vatatparas, and yimas was completed by the unit, kashta, which was equal to 1/300 millionth of a second. Why would ancient people need such a unit of time that can only be used in atomic physics? In ancient times, each civilization had its own calendar system, which started from some real events. A flood, an earthquake, or the end of the migration of people. In the ancient history of mankind, there is indeed an amazing coincidence of the starting points of various chronologies. The ancient Egyptian calendar cycle, called the Sothic cycle, numbered 1,460 years. One of these cycles ended in 1322 BC. If we count back 7 cycles from this year, we get 11,542 BC. The ancient Assyrian calendar consisted of lunar cycles of 1,805 years. The end of one of these cycles falls on 712 BC. If we count back 6 cycles, we will get 11,542 BC again. The ancient Indian lunar solar cycle consisted of 2,850 years. The Iron Age, or Kali Yuga, in which we live now, began in 3102 BC. Counting 3 cycles back from this date, we get 11,652 BC. Among the ancient Maya in Central America, The beginning of the calendar era falls on 3373 BC, and the calendar cycle is 2,760 years. Counting back 3 cycles again, we come to 11,653 BC. It is impossible to explain such coincidence of calendars' dates of different peoples separated by oceans and deserts as a mere chance. It is obvious that the starting point for all 4 calendars was some one global event. Less well-known, however, recorded in ancient India and Mesopotamia, in Africa and ancient Greece, in Central America and Tierra del Fuego, is the myth that there was no moon in the sky before the flood. So, the Bushmen of South Africa have an ancient legend that the moon appeared in the sky only after the flood. A similar legend exists among the natives of Tierra del Fuego. One day, the sea shook to the heavens, and the moon emerged out of it. The Greek epic about the semi-legendary happy country of Arcadia calls its inhabitants Proselenians, which means before the moon, since they lived on Earth when there was no moon in the sky yet. This myth was also confirmed by Apollonius of Rhodes, the curator of the Library of Alexandria. Referring to the manuscripts known to him, Apollonius wrote that the moon did not always shine in the earthly sky. And during excavations in Sumer, clay tablets were found, which tell about the events after the flood, when the moon appeared in the sky. There are also many oddities with the position of the planet Earth inside the solar system, but this is a topic for another video. What do you think? Isn't it interesting? Let me know your feedback, rate this video, and write a comment. The fact is, there is a lot more to tell on this topic, but whether it is worth making such videos or not, depends on your reaction. So let us know, and see you in the next video.